All right, I'm back. I'm back. Hopefully everything has worked out well. Hopefully everything has worked out well and everyone can hear me this time. I apologize, but at least I finally found out what was going on with my live streams. I've tried to do this particular live stream about 3 times now and have not been able to complete it. Yes, I even went so far as to switching it up a little bit and um, actually just doing it without being on camera, which is different from the presentation style that I've been using on legit motivation. But we're going to see how this works because at the end of the day, I just want to get this information out here and get it available to people that may enjoy it, or hopefully maybe one day it might even help somebody. So without further ado, let's get started talking about this topic. I've already played all my little fun little introductory music videos and whatnot. So again, I apologize to everyone for the technical difficulties, but it looks like I got it right now. So we're going to stick with this. And if you're not already subscribed to Legit Hustle on YouTube, I would encourage you to please subscribe, follow along on this journey. If you're a hustler or a business owner or somebody just with a dream, or maybe you just like listening to motivational, inspirational content from time to time, then you're welcome here as well. I, of course, am your distinguished host, Mr. Legit Hustle Mike Sanders. And today, we're going to be talking about the power of positive self-talk. That's right. Got to have a conversation with yourself sometimes, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So without further ado, let's get into this topic, man. The power of positive self-talk. Transforming your inner narrative. Changing the story that you tell yourself to create lasting personal transformation. Self-talk, your inner narrative, what you tell yourself about yourself. Now, before we get started, we have to all face a fundamental and foundational truth, and that's that we are who we prove ourselves to be through our actions. We are not who we say we are. We are who we show that we are by our actions. But even deeper than that, our actions are determined by who we tell ourselves that we are. Who do we tell ourselves that we are? This is the internal narrative that is actually the blueprint, the design for our lives. And because our actions lead us to a specific result called consequences, it ultimately shapes our destiny. So our inner narrative is extremely important for us, especially if we're someone who is in a high performing position. You're running a business, you're a CEO, you're self-employed, you're a content creator. But it also applies to everyone, right? Every one of us have an inner narrative that is shaping our lives. So once again, even though Legit Hustle as a channel is kind of geared toward people who are self-employed and entrepreneurs and hustlers and things of that nature, these type of topics are the type that everyone can benefit from, because we all have an inner narrative that we tell ourselves about ourselves. But the problem gets to be that all too often we never address the inner narrative that we're having inside, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is addressing our inner narratives. And I hope my mic sounds good. I hope the volume settings aren't up too loud. Forgive me for some noise if you hear it. All right, that might be a little bit better. Hope. All right, so let's get back to it. So with that in mind, let's move on and start talking about some specifics, right, of that inner narrative. Like, where does it begin? Where does it start? And who or what determines what that inner narrative is actually going to be for us? For us, I will go so far as to say probably all of us as individuals, that narrative that we tell ourselves about ourselves starts when we're very young children, because at that time our mind is of course the most impressionable, but not just our conscious mind, maybe even more importantly, our subconscious mind is extremely impressionable during that time. Those early experiences are the groundwork for what's going to be our eventual self-perception, our view of ourselves. This brings into play things like self-esteem and self-respect. All that starts at this young age. But that's probably not new information to you, right? We all know that. But do you know that this is the stage also where those seeds get planted into our mind that eventually become what people call a self-fulfilling prophecy? For example, if you repeatedly if you repeatedly tell a child that they are bad, that child eventually begins to believe that they are in fact bad, and they act out that belief. They begin to do the things that a bad child does because subconsciously that person, parent, teacher, or whoever has convinced that child that they are in fact a bad child. And so the child is acting out, the child is doing all these things that eventually lead it into a self-fulfilling prophecy, because at these malleable, impressionable young years of our lives is when those seeds get planted. Right? So if you're watching this, I want to ask you, what seeds got planted with you when you were young? What did someone convince you of about yourself that may not even be true? And are you acting out based on a lie that you were told about yourself when you were a child? That's where these things started. Doesn't start in the adult years. It starts in the child years. So what are some of those experiences that shape our inner voice? For those of you who see this, you may have experienced one. You may have experienced all of these. Right? But we're going to look at 4 examples of childhood experiences that begin to shape that inner voice, and maybe have that inner voice, that inner narrative, to lie to us. Right? So one is emotional neglect. When you feel unseen as a child, when you feel unheard, it subconsciously causes us as children to start to doubt our own self-worth and our own significance in the world. And not necessarily the greater world at large. For a child, that world may consist of just your family members. That world may consist of just your family members and your close friends. But whatever that world, whatever constitutes that world in that young child subconsciously, it has created an inner narrative because of emotional neglect that I don't matter. Has your inner narrative ever told you that you didn't matter? That what you did doesn't matter? Is it possible that maybe someone has introduced this false narrative into your subconscious mind through emotional neglect when you were much, much younger than you probably are now? I don't really make content for children, So I'm going to assume that everybody who watches this is at least 18 years old and maybe legally considered an adult, right? But through emotional neglect, did someone teach you and give you that inner narrative that you don't matter? What about excessive criticism? When a child is constantly being compared to another child, especially one who may achieve things or be capable of things that that child is not, it creates unrealistic expectations that begin to transform into thoughts and beliefs of inadequacy and failure. Not because the child necessarily failed, not because the child is necessarily not capable, but constantly comparing one child to another, constantly creating unrealistic expectations for a child is one of the ways that an adult instills that inner narrative that you're not good enough. Yeah, you just being you, it ain't good enough. Now, if you was more like little Timmy over there, see, little Timmy is a good student. Little Timmy is a good son. You constantly comparing a child to another child or adult or whoever. The only thing you're subconsciously telling that child is they are not good enough. And they can't be little Timmy because they're not Timmy, they're Johnny. Right? Did someone in your young years give you that inner narrative that you are not good enough because you're not such and such? That you're not as whatever as such and such? What about abuse and trauma? Now, this is well known. I probably don't have to say too much or tell too many people about the impact that abuse and trauma has on a person. Whether it's physical, emotional, sexual abuse, whatever it may be, it usually results in a person living their life feeling ashamed inside and having to deal with feelings of worthlessness. Again, not because they were a child who did something wrong or inappropriate, no, but because some weird ass adult wanted to do things to them that made them have to deal with that internal feeling, that shame and worthlessness. Worst part is, it's not even theirs. The person that should be ashamed and feel worthless is the abuser. But human nature, where our minds work, that's not typically what happens. What typically happens is the victim starts to carry around that shame. The victim carries around that feeling of worthlessness. And from their young childhood days, they grow up into someone whose inner narrative now tells them that they are flawed. Not that they were the victim of a flawed person. No, the inner narrative in their subconscious mind is that they are the flaw. Now that's fucked up. Excuse my, man, this legit hustle. I talk how I want to. That's fucked up. You know, not that any of these other experiences are necessarily less damaging to the child. But especially when you start talking about abuse, physical, especially emotional abuse and sexual abuse, what that does to the young mind, the trauma that it creates. You ever wonder why so many of us struggle? Why so many of us have hard times having normal, acceptable human interaction, human relationships? I remember moving to Atlanta the first time in my early 20s. And, you know, I wasn't totally naive to life. You know, I knew things like this happen. But I had no idea of how many women, and I'm speaking specifically about black women, FBA women, had been victims in their lifetime of sexual abuse. Right? Even though I knew these things went on and they happened, I had no idea that as many of my sisters had gone through this as had actually gone through it. It seemed like every woman I met in my early 20s had been a victim of some type of sexual abuse. Why am I bringing that up? How many of my sisters out there, because of emotional or sexual abuse, walk around with that internal narrative that they are flawed? They're never pretty enough. They're never this or that enough. We're not talking about children, we're talking about adults. And the impact that those type of traumas in childhood have on us into adulthood. How many of y'all that watch this or hear this has that internal narrative because of what some weirdo or some creep did to you? That had nothing to do with you. You were a child. You were young. You might have been a teenager, whatever. Hell, you might have been a grown woman. For my brothers out there, because it don't just happen to women. How many of us are walking around not feeling adequate enough, feeling like we're flawed, because some weirdo in our young lives decided to do something to us? Right? And now, through no fault of our own, you're walking through life with your inner narrative telling you that you're the flawed one. You're the one that has something to be ashamed of. You're the person. You did it. It was you. Ain't that sad? Ain't that terrible above all anything else? That these type of experiences make the victim blame themselves. How many of us walking around telling ourselves that? All these topics be very personal for me, but this is one I'm not even going to get into no real personal conversation about this because it's that personal to me. And I'm not going to point out which one of these things are that personal to me. Just know I know about these experiences intimately well. Right? How many of y'all walking around with that destructive inner negative narrative, that self-talk, because of what happened to you in your childhood? Right? The last one, parental conflict. We have a term that we're probably all familiar with, being the black sheep of a family. That comes from children being forced to internalize blame for the family's dysfunction. How many of us out there are the black sheep in our family? No matter what happened in our family, no matter what atrocities or errors were made, somehow, some way, it's your fault. Somehow, some way, it's always your fault because the family is dysfunctional. It's you. How many of us got told that and made to feel that way in our young childhoods? Were you consciously aware of the impact that has on you, even as an adult, with regard to the inner voice that is literally shaping your entire life, shaping your destiny? Huh? Now the child grows up. The child's a teenager now. And we all know those teen years are a critical crossroad period for us as young adults. The research shows that there's a direct connection between negative self-talk, low self-esteem, and risky teen behavior. That causes us, when we're in our young teens, to act impulsively, right? Not really giving enough thought to the things that it is that we may be dealing with, or the choices we have to make at that stage of our young lives, being teenagers. It also leads to feelings of inadequacy and aggression, antisocial behavior. If you like me and you really, really care about people, our people, if you're aware of the things that go on in the streets, gang activity, some of the crimes that our teens get in, hell, some of the crimes that some of us got into when we were at this stage in our lives. How many of us were aware of the impact that the negative self-talk that we were having as teenagers is probably the reason that a lot of us got led into the things that we got led into? How many of our young teen brothers and sisters right now are being led into things that were it not for the negative self-talk that was forced upon them in their young childhood years, they may not be doing the things that we see our young ones doing right now either. Right? As older guys, the OGs, whatever you consider us, I don't like the term unk, so please don't call me unk. But I do take OG. As y'all OGs, man, y'all big brothers out here, a lot of us know that some of the violence, we say that it's because maybe you all are afraid that you shoot, you pull a weapon, you make a quick decision like that because you're afraid. And it's not to talk down to you. It's not to make you feel like you're a coward. No, not that type of fear. How many of us knew that defensive aggression is a real thing? That a person becomes so defensive that they are actually the aggressor in a situation. How is that possible? What do I mean? If no one is attacking you, but you are defensive, you are the aggressor. If no one is swinging at you and you just start swinging at other people, you are the aggressor. How many of us have made decisions? How many of our young ones out there right now are making the types of decisions in their life that are based on these things? A negative inner narrative about themselves. Not because they evil young ones, or they just bad, or they just like killing and violence. How many of them are actually displaying defensive aggression? I'm going to hurt you before you can hurt me. Do you know that that often stems from being given a feeling, a belief that you are not good enough? The things we talked about in the previous slide. It's always your fault. The fear of being that inadequate, the fear of being rejected by other people is one of the root causes of defensive aggression. Especially in our young teen years. How many of us have committed crimes or done things because of this negative inner narrative about ourselves in our teen years? What about self-sabotage? The promising teen student in high school who had everything going for him. He was an outstanding ball player. He was an outstanding rapper. Maybe he was an outstanding student, an outstanding musician in the band or whatever. And then they make these decisions and throw it all away. Why would someone with so much potential and so much promise throw away everything that they have going for themselves? Is it because they have such a negative inner narrative that they feel like they gonna fail anyway, so they gone getting it out the way? Man, I never make it to the NBA. Man, I can't do this. I can't do that. Is it because they already have such a negative inner narrative about themselves that someone else gave them? That's not even really about them. What about risk taking? The reason why in these years your car insurance is so expensive. Because these are the years that we're more likely to engage in risky behavior. Well, if you have a negative inner narrative about yourself, guess what you're going to do? You're going to go over and beyond. You're going to be extra about doing shit to belong, to feel like you have some sort of power or significance in your own life. And that usually comes in making dangerous choices. It might not be criminal. It might be to drunk race with your friends in your new cars while you out with your homies or whatever that night. Reckless driving, drinking, drug taking. How many of us have done these self-destructive behaviors, or maybe lived in a self-destructive lifestyle, because we really had a negative inner narrative being told to ourselves? I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably most. Especially in our community, especially in the black community, especially amongst us, that's what I like to refer to, and others do as well, FBAs. How many of us made unnecessary errors, had to deal with unnecessary consequences from things, because someone in our young childhood instilled a negative inner narrative into our subconscious mind about ourselves? What happens after the teen years? Y'all know, of course, it doesn't stop there. Then the teen becomes an adult. What happens then? It kills the ability to connect with other people in a healthy way. Right? A lot of these toxic relationships that we observe amongst people, especially when it seems like one or both of them just can't break away and leave the other one alone. What if that person is so codependent on the other that without them, they don't feel worthy of love from anyone else? This is the only person that I feel like ever really loved me, and I need that so bad from him or her. How many people stop to consider that need, that codependency, is the root of the dysfunction or the toxicity in the relationship? Maybe not just the character of the people. Maybe it's the inner narrative that one or both have about themselves. People who avoid others and isolate themselves from others. If I let people close, man, they're going to see through me. They're going to see how flawed I am. So they hide, they duck, they cover up their true selves. It also manifests itself in relationships as jealousy and control. Yeah, jealousy and control. I'm going to turn my mic down a little bit because hopefully it'll sound a little better. I hope that's better for everybody. It sounds weird in my ears. But a lot of the toxicness in relationships, when it comes to one or both of the people being extremely jealous or control freaks, did you realize that it may come from that person's negative inner narrative about themselves? It ain't really you that they don't trust. It's themselves that they have the problem with. All these are just singular, of just a few ways, a few specific examples of one, how a person develops a negative inner narrative about themselves, a negative inner self-talk, right? But there are many, 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 many more. These are just some. Did you ever stop to think about or realize just how much the story that you tell yourself about yourself inside may be impacting your life right now. Your relationships right now. Well, if not, that's what this episode is about. Because this is legit hustle, right? It's channel for the hustlers, small business owners, entrepreneurs, this is that, right? So how does that negative inner narrative, that negative self-talk, what does that do to us in our careers and our business performance? You ever known somebody in business or at the job they were so capable? They could have really been this or that. They could have really advanced. They could have really had greater opportunities if the person just didn't procrastinate so much. Have you ever considered that maybe that person's inner narrative is telling them that if I try, I'm going to fail anyway? So rather than experience the negative emotions of failure, they don't even try. They don't even get started. You ever saw somebody like that? Maybe that person is you. If you tend to procrastinate on the job or in getting your business objectives accomplished, there's a high likelihood that it's because you have a negative inner narrative about yourself. Not because you're not capable, but because you keep telling yourself you're not. You may not even realize that you're telling yourself that. We're going to get into that voice a little bit later in just a second here. Because that voice is very deceptive. You may not even realize that you're telling yourself that if you try, you're going to fail anyway. What about a person whose inner narrative tells them that they don't deserve anything? They don't deserve recognition. They don't deserve good fortune. They don't deserve success. That person feels like an imposter. They feel like a fake. Right? Is that you? Are you battling with feeling like you worthy of the success and the achievements that you reach and the ones that you are going to reach in the future? Do you feel worthy of those things? If not, is it because your inner narrative is telling you lies about you? What about a person who always settles for the bare minimum? They're so capable, but they don't charge enough for their services. They don't charge enough for the product that they create. They don't reach out for the promotion at the job, even though everybody around them may know they're capable of doing it. But they never actually reach beyond it. What about that person? Could it be that their inner narrative is telling them, if I reach out for more, if I reach out for that promotion, if I ask for that raise, they're going to get rid of me? That person has boundary issues because of the inner narrative that they have about themselves. So they don't advocate for themselves. They don't achieve what we all look at them and see they're capable of. Is that you? Do you have a negative inner narrative about yourself? Before we get into how you know and how you identify that inner narrative, again, I just want to take a second to invite everybody that's watching to, if you're not already subscribed to Legit Hustle. This is Legit Motivation, the motivational series I do on my channel. So if you're enjoying this conversation, this presentation, please by all means subscribe, like, share the content. Y'all know the regular YouTube spiel, man. You know, do that. I'm trying to put out positive information and content for people, especially my people. All right. So if you're not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. Also, I want to remind everybody that I will shortly begin having my events for my company. Again, workshops and seminars that I'll be hosting. So definitely subscribe and stay tuned to the channel, because I'll be letting most of y'all know through here when those workshops and events will actually be available. And again, if you're new to the channel or if you just forgot, the presentations that I use here on Legit Motivation are always available for you to download for free, to go over at your own pace, to do some more research on. I've finally gotten good at remembering to include my my references and things on the presentation. So I include the references for the information in the presentations as well. And those are always free. And again, if you want to donate anything to support the channel, you can do so at that website. That is @legithustle.com. Make sure you put the dash in the middle, man. That's me. legit-hustle.com, if I can even say my own website right. All right. Again, I appreciate everybody for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we're going to jump back into it, man. We're going to keep it moving. So now let's talk about, how do we transform that inner narrative? How do we change the negative destiny, the negative outcome that we may unknowingly be creating for ourselves through our inner narrative? I will warn you that this journey requires courage, it requires honesty, and it requires commitment from you. Doesn't matter who else may want something for us. At the end of the day, these type of changes, these type of self-analysis and analyzations, they require us to be courageous. They require us to be honest. And they require us to be committed to doing something about it. And if that's you, then we're going to move on into talking about, how do you do that? The first step, you have to have an honest self-evaluation with yourself. This is going to be a very uncomfortable conversation when you do it. I will warn you now. Because you're going to have to confront your core beliefs, your deepest beliefs, right? Not just looking back on your life and looking at decisions that you made that you may regret, or I would do this differently. No. This requires that you look deeper and you ask yourself, well, why did I do that? Why did I make that decision? What conversation was I having with myself in my head about myself when I did those things, when I made that decision? And where did that lie about me, that I wasn't good enough, that they were going to leave me or cheat on me anyway? I was going to fail at the company anyway. Where did that lie start at? That's going to be a very uncomfortable conversation. Again, I can tell you from personal experience. But the people who know me in my personal life know I have a saying, and that's that acceptance is the hardest part. So if you think the conversation is going to be hard, accepting that conversation is even harder. But you have to. You have to acknowledge that that negative voice exists and the power that it has to impact your life. You got to acknowledge that. And you have to accept that. Just like any other form of recovery, whether it's alcoholism or drug abuse or any other negative, addictive self-behavior. Addictive, negative behavior. The very first step is admitting that there's a problem. Admitting that something needs to change, that we need to do something different. And that's this phase. The conversation, accepting things for what they are, not the way you necessarily want them to be inside our minds. Not necessarily what we want the conversation to be, but what is the conversation inside ourselves? What am I actually telling Mike about Mike? What is Timmy actually telling Timmy about Timmy? What is Erica telling Erica about Erica? Doesn't involve anybody else, just ourselves. And keep in mind that it doesn't matter how bad that truth is. It doesn't matter how silly that thing seems that we believe that or that we tell ourselves that. It does not matter. What matters is that we recognize it, that it's true, that this voice is present, this negative inner narrative. And then you have to decide who you're going to be. Are you going to be the person that negative inner narrative is telling you that you are? Are you going to engage in the negative self-destructive behavior that inner narrative says you're worthy of? Are you going to do that? Right? And this is a weighty decision. Remember, it takes commitment. So this isn't just about saying some words to ourselves. You've had the conversation. You've identified it. You've accepted that it's there. Now you got to decide what you're going to do about it. You remember the Matrix movie? The red, blue pill? This is that type of moment in your life. You can take that blue pill and you can stay comfortable. You don't have to do any hard work. You take that blue pill, you can just be the negative narrative that you tell yourself you are. But you also have to accept all the consequences that come with that. Right? So you can do that. Or you can take that red pill that it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. You're going to have to confront yourself. Now, spend a lot of time looking at yourself in the mirror, talking to yourself about yourself. And it's going to be difficult. It ain't going to be fun. But that is the path that ultimately frees you from the confines of the lie that you have been telling yourself in that negative narrative. Right? So what's the choice going to be? You're going to take the red pill or you're going to take the blue pill? Step 3, you have to monitor your thoughts. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Step 1 of part 3, monitoring your thoughts, listening for the enemy. That negative narrative inside us is automatic, meaning we don't consciously decide to say it to ourselves. It happens automatically, and it's very subtle. So you have to consciously be mindful. You have to consciously be on the lookout for that inner narrative. You have to practice at learning how to detect when you're having that negative inner narrative with yourself. To do that, you have to recognize its disguise. One of the most dangerous things about the negative inner narrative is that voice sounds just like you inside. That thought sounds just like you. And because it sounds so much like your voice, it has authority in your mind, in your consciousness. It has the ability to cause you to make decisions. Because your conscious mind accepts that okay, that's me. That's the other me talking to me. And it may not be. That voice often masquerades as caution. It'll even pretend to be wisdom or just being real about something. When in actuality, it's just a liar. And it has been telling you lies for a long time. But it sounds like you, it feels like you inside. But is it you? Then you have to interrupt the pattern. Now that you've learned to listen for it and you recognize it, when you hear that negative inner narrative kick in, be it the form of your inner voice or a thought or a feeling, when it kicks in, you immediately replace it with something positive and affirming about yourself. I'm not going to mess this presentation up. I am prepared for this and I can handle this. I have studied for this test for 3 weeks. I am not going to fail at this. I am prepared for this, and I know that I'm prepared for it because I have put in the work to be prepared for it. So when you catch that narrative trying to sneak in, you got to punch him right in his face, right? Stop him dead in his tracks and replace it with something positive that says, nope, you're not true. This is what's true. One of my favorite motivational speakers is a guy by the name of Les Brown. I would love to actually have a conversation with Mr. Brown one day. He's up in age now, and I know he still produces content from time to time, but Les Brown is one of my favorite motivational speakers. He's one of my favorite speakers to just listen to, period, honestly. But he has in some of his lectures this thing where he says you have to tell yourself to shut up sometimes. You have to tell yourself to stop sometimes. Sometimes you tell yourself inside, man, shut up, Mike. Man, Lisa, shut up. Can you do that? You're going to need to. Because once you start to interrupt that pattern, it's not just going to stop. It's not going to go away forever. That voice is going to try to talk to you again. It's why you have to be in control of yourself. You have to catch it, punch it in the face, and tell it get the hell on. Then you decide what your inner narrative is going to be right then, in that moment. Right when you're going to greet that prospect. Right when you're trying to decide if you should hand this person your business card, and that little evil ass inner narrative then popped his ass up and tried to make you feel like you wasn't capable. Why would that person choose me? Why would that young lady be interested in me? Right? And that requires that you are in control of your thoughts. Especially that little one in you. That subconscious thought, that inner narrative. Right? So this is a journey. And it's also a cycle. This is not a one-time trip. You must make this trip, this transformation trip, multiple times. You are going to have to perform these series of steps multiple times in your life. Are you ready for that? Are you committed to that? Are you ready to perform that honest self-evaluation? Are you ready to make a conscious decision as to who you're going to be, who you're going to choose to be? Are you ready to be on the alert, and monitor your thoughts daily, hourly if need be? People who have to deal with substance abuse or overcoming substance abuse, they know that sometimes that is a minute by minute fight. I need to win this minute, this second right now. I might fail tomorrow, but right now I need to win this minute. This journey is no different. Whenever that voice rears its head, whenever that negative self-talk comes up, you got to be prepared for it. And you may not have the strength, you may not have the inner fortitude to defeat it for the week. You may not even have it in you to defeat it for the day. But if you can just defeat it for this second, right now. People who have also had to deal with recovery will also tell you every time you win one of those little 1 second battles, you get stronger. And before you know it, you're not fighting 1 second battles. You're fighting hourly battles. Then you're not fighting hourly battles, you're fighting daily battles. And then it's not a daily battle, it may be a weekly battle, a monthly battle. And before you know it, you've been so busy locked in and fighting this battle because you're determined to recover. You're determined to be this person. You made that decision. That you look up one day, and now it's been years since that negative thing, that negative habit, that negative inner narrative even reared its head loud enough to disturb you. Are you in it for the long haul? Are you committed to the journey so that you can sustain the progress that you make? Be it a small step, a 1 second step, or be it a 1 year step. Are you committed enough to maintain the progress? So as y'all know, the way I do over here at Legit Hustle, man, y'all know I don't never just get on here and just talk to y'all about nothing. So as always, your homie, Mr. Legit Hustle, I got some tools for you in this presentation. And again, these are always free for y'all. You can go to _HGHustle.com and grab this if you want to have a reference for it. But there are some tools included in this presentation. And I'm not going to necessarily go over all of them because I got started a little bit later today. I had a meeting that went a little bit over. And I have some other things that I need to get done before another stream that I'm going to be on with my homeboy Straight Smoke this evening. Looking forward to that. Shout out to the homie. So I got to get some things taken care of before that. So I probably won't go through this whole presentation. But again, y'all know how I do. If you want the presentation, if you want to grab this, then by all means, head to _HGHustle.com. That's legit-hustle.com. Grab the presentation. The tools will be available for you at the bottom, toward the bottom of the presentation. But all this information is available for you, for my audience, for my subscribers, for my viewers, even if you're not a subscriber, even if you don't hit the like button, whatever, anyone, right? It's out there for y'all. So grab a copy and you'll have access to everything that we're about to go over. The tools that we need in order to help us in that journey of transformation with our inner narrative. One of those tools is the 2-minute morning mirror. This starts your day off right. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't often do this way, right? Sometimes I write down affirmations, and I don't even do that with a whole lot of regularity. But the reason being is because these steps I took years ago, and at one point I did have to get up every day and tell myself, it's okay, Mike. I did have to get up every day and look at myself and say, hey, you're worth something, Mike. I did have to do that. I don't necessarily have to do it now at this point. But if you're starting out on this journey and you're trying to really reshape that inner narrative, then start your day by telling yourself true. And that is key. They must be true. They cannot be fantasies or idealistic opinions about ourselves of how we would like to be. No, find 3 things about you that are true. 3 positive things. Hey, you know what? I'm a loyal ass friend. Man, I'm a good truck driver. Man, I can cut some motherfucking hair. You hear me? Man, I'm good at this shit. Hey, today, I ain't finna let nobody get me out my zone. I'm gonna be peaceful all day. Today, I choose peace. I'm smiling at everybody. Ain't nobody gonna take my joy today. It don't take but a few seconds. It don't even take 2 minutes to do that, honestly. I did a previous presentation on loving ourselves. Love yourself enough to give yourself 2 minutes every morning before you start your day, before you head out the house. Hell, before you even wash your face and brush your teeth. You can do this with a crusty face and an icky mouth. But give yourself 2 minutes every morning to tell yourself some true positive things about yourself. Simple as this may seem, this starts to rewire our brain through repetition. And the same way that voice that sounds like us has authority in our own minds because it sounds just like us, when you tell yourself these positive things about yourself in your voice, it has the same authority. Right? So love yourself enough. Give yourself 2 minutes every day, man, and just say some positive things about you. Keep a journal. It's kind of corny. I know for us as men, this ain't necessarily, this ain't the glamorous part of being a hustler. This ain't the glamorous part. This ain't the flashy part of being successful, being an entrepreneur, or being a good parent. This isn't that part. Because this transformation is about you and it's for you more than anyone else. So your journal is for you. Right? When you have a negative thought come up, this will help you start to recognize it. It'll help you recognize situations that tend to cause that voice to speak negatively to you. When you have to face certain circumstances, when you're in certain emotional states, document when these things are. What's the thought? What evidence did you have that thought was even true? And what evidence do you have disproving it? Right? Just jot some things down. Even if it ain't that detailed. You might just jot down what the thought was and what your response was to it. But record it. That journal becomes your motivation after time for you to look back at it and say, man, I used to have this thought all the time. I don't really have that thought as much anymore. Now I tend to have these kind of thoughts, but they're not as bad or as negative as those thoughts. This journal becomes your progress report, right? It's your report card for you about you. Simple tools. The act as if principle. Now, this is legit hustle. You cannot be a legit hustler if you faking it till you make it. So this is not fake it till you make it. This is the act as if principle. This is about a behavior. This is not faking it. This is about a behavior. This is consciously choosing to behave as the healed, confident, restored version of ourselves that we chose back at the red pill, blue pill slot. Remember? You can continue to be that hurt person that's living out that false narrative, or you can choose to be the healed person. You still got to put in the work. You still got to heal. But every day, every decision, you can consciously decide, am I going to act like the broken, scarred version of myself, or am I going to be the healed, restored version that I've been working so hard to become? These small actions, these repetitive actions, this is what creates the change. And sometimes, especially in business, you have to create the change. You have to enact the change before you feel like the person. You have to become the CEO of that company you started before you even start to feel like a CEO of that company you started. All right? You have to become a manager. You have to get that promotion and move up into the executive part or upper management before you feel like that person. So this isn't fake it till you make it. This is consciously decide to be the healed person, which means you can't listen to that negative narrative anymore. Every time it rears his head up, you already decide I'm gonna bust him in his mouth. Every time this mofo show his face, I'm gonna punch him in his shit. That's a choice, right? The act as if principle. Be it. Be it. Choose to be it. And worry about feeling like it later, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I guess I did end up going further than I want. I got a little time. I ain't doing too bad. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope this motivates anybody that sees this to start a new story, to start a new narrative. Stop listening to them lies about yourself that someone in your childhood forced you to believe about yourself. Choose. Maybe you can't make that choice today, but put it on your calendar. Hey, I got a choice to make. At some point in the near future, I'm going to choose. Either I'm going to continue to be broken and hurt and scarred, or I'm going to just choose to not be. And that starts with what I tell myself about myself, your inner narrative. And that, my friends, is the power of positive self-talk. You get to write a new story for yourself. You get to choose who you are. But again, I warn you, it is a journey. It is a battle. It will not be easy. It will not be comfortable. And it will not be fun. But it will be oh so rewarding if you commit to it. So commit to it. So before I wrap up, I got to give a special shout out to my favorite client. Don't tell nobody else that. Yvette Nelson at New Freedom Financial in Albany, Georgia. If you are a small business owner, if you are an entrepreneur, or hell, even if you just, let me not say just, not to minimize people who have a job. But regardless of who you are in your life, credit is something that all of us need to be responsible about. But maybe you don't know how to be responsible about credit. You don't know how much balance you should maintain on a credit card. Hell, you might not even be able to qualify for a credit card. If that's you, then please, please, please take a very positive step in your life and reach out to my good friend and client, Yvette Nelson at New Freedom Financial. If you download a copy of this, that is a working button. So if you get a copy of this presentation, you can simply click that contact button on the presentation and it will take you directly to her site so that you can schedule a time to get in touch with her, to talk to her or her team about your credit needs. All right. Also, just a reminder, I will be bringing back my workshops and events, as I said earlier. So if you're a small business owner, an entrepreneur, somebody that works for yourself, even a content creator, definitely subscribe to the channel. Stay in touch with Legit Hustle, man, because I will be having those events again starting at the beginning of the year. So again, subscribe, keep in touch. And I have enjoyed it, man. I hope all of you all enjoyed this presentation. And I hope you will decide to be the best version of yourself, to be the person that maybe you were always truly meant to be, and not the person that someone else forced you to think you had to be, right? So with that said, I'm about to get out of here, man. I appreciate it. This has been Legit Motivation. This your homie, Mike, aka Mr. Legit Hustle, man. And y'all know my motto. Hustle smarter, man. Peace. I've worked too hard to stop now. But it seems like every time I turn around, it's somebody hating. I need to ride. Yo,
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Nip.
Yo, man, this one goes out to everybody out there getting it on it. You know what I'm saying? However you getting paid, how you paying your bills, hopefully it's legit. You know what I'm saying? But even if it ain't, do the best you can, you know what I'm saying? And get it on your own. Yeah, West Coast, slow motion. Waking up the morning views of the ocean, freshen up your swag, roll up your neck back, 40 on your hip, dip to the west side. Between the trees and the breeze is where you reside. You let the 6-4 dip slow side to side. The good life, no longer stressing on that hood stripe. Your kids bless, you can't flex, they doing all right. On top of that, today you rhyme with your lady. Yep, that's your baby. Play with her, they must be crazy. Had the hood going crazy when them shop doors open. Time cuts in the city, that's what you been promoting. Plus it's clear to see that every real G is positive, so community, productivity, that's the slogan. Pushing back on the forces, trying to stop what's wrong. They can't hold you back. When the door of opportunity opens up for you like a Cadillac, you ain't having that, you came too far to try and travel back. And plus that's way too whack. So when the plans stay rolling and the dope keep folding while your life unfolding, then you blast on. Never mind the haters, can't make or break you. Where will hustle take you when your faith overtakes you? Yeah, it feels good when you getting it on your own. Pushing fly wheels, putting families in, fly home. But you gotta stay strong when you're walking on your own and turn BS a rare when life ends you stones. It feels good when you getting it on your own. Pushing fly wheels, putting families in, fly home. But you gotta stay strong when you're walking on your own and turn BS a rare when life ends you stones. But don't expect it to be easy breezy. Besides being cheesy, it's slightly greasy like an Eskimo. Trying to sell your bro that don't love the pole. His ass still ain't free. The truth is you take the good with the bad. If it's worth it, then on purpose, it ain't easy to be had. But don't let it stop you, cause unless they pop you, then you gotta know the wind's already in the back. It takes thick skin to walk amongst men that don't comprehend the grind that you're living in. Unfortunately, it usually proves to be negativity from friends and your family. But when you focus, you can't get caught slipping. You cool ranch while you dipping. Fly with eagles, not chickens, and you bound to see between you and me that there's no enemies. And yes, success is proof. Me, I'm still noodle flowing in the booth. If you need more proof, go and check me mirror, cause it couldn't be clearer that you're bound for the top. So stay on your grind and don't you dare ever stop it. When the roadblocks, act like mad cops, that only means you're just a mirror, homie, just watch. Ain't no need to be silent when you're made of iron. And for winners like you, there's no such thing as trying. It feels good when you're getting it on your own. Pushing fly wheels, putting families in, fly home. But you gotta stay strong when you're walking on your own and turn BS a bread when life gives you stones. It feels good when you getting it on your own. Pushing fly wheels, putting families in, fly home. But you gotta stay strong when you're walking on your own and turn BS a bread when life gives you stones. And there you have it. You know what I'm saying? This goes out to everybody out there getting it on their own. Like I said, you over there, feel me? The fade, all the barbershops, hair salons, nail salons, massage parlors, dentist office, you feel me? Soul food restaurants, whatever you do, man. If you work for yourself, it's your anthem right here, man. It's my salute to you. I see you get it on your own. And if you employ other people, you're a real life hero. You know what I'm saying? Salute. Yeah. Keep getting it on your own.
Yo, what's up? Greetings, everybody. This is Mike, aka Mr. Legit Hustle. Y'all know me, your homie, your brother from another mother. First and foremost, thank you for checking me out, for being here rocking with me. Could have been anywhere else on the internet, on YouTube, but you're here watching my content, so I just want to thank you. I also want to ask you something. Do you have a dream or goal that you feel driven to pursue? Or maybe you're like me and you're already deep in the pursuit of your dream or whatever that goal is, and you like a little motivation and direction in overcoming the challenges that you face. You know, sometimes we doubt ourselves. Sometimes we get afraid of failing. Or maybe you just need some inspiration from time to time. Well, I want to encourage you to never allow yourself to fall victim to discouragement. When you choose to pursue a goal or a dream in your life, know that you're gonna get met with opposition and challenges. It just comes with the territory. But there's too much at stake for you to quit. And if you're like me, then you've come too far and through too much to ever give up on that dream or that goal. So, I want to invite you to grab one or two or all of my legit motivation presentations. You can watch the videos on my Legit Motivation podcast on my YouTube channel. And if you see one that you like, you can download the actual slide presentation that I developed and used in that video. That way, you can review the information in depth at your own pace. Now, each slide presentation is packed with factual, reputable, and verifiable information from reliable sources, as well as the game I've learned in 46 years on this realm. So head over to my Legit Motivation podcast on YouTube or go to 𝐬𝐿GHustle.com. Presentations are free, but if you'd like to support the channel, then you can donate there as well. Whether you do or don't, the presentations are yours to keep. Plus, you'll get a special bonus offer on all of my products and services when you download your first presentation. So head over to 𝐬𝐿GHustle.com or look for the link in the comment section of the video that you like. Alright? Again, thank you for rocking with me. Enjoy the rest of the show. Peace.